Friday, March 6, 2026, Buddha Dhamma, Chapter 17.10, Virtuous Conduct and Moral Codes, 17.10a, Important Terms Pertaining to Sila, Morality, Sila, Vinaya, and Sikkhapada, 17.10b, Sila on the level of Dhamma and Sila on the level of the Vinaya. From page 1657 to page 1668. Buddha Dhamma, compiled by Somdet Prat, Bhuta Gosacharya. English name, P.A. Payutto. 17.10 Virtuous Conduct and Moral Codes. Moral codes are established to guide people's behavior and speech. They deal with people's relationship to their external environment, especially to the relationship of other human beings. They maintain a way of life that is well ordered and mutually beneficial for all members of society. Moral codes assist people within a particular society to increase virtuous activities so that they can realize the highest goal according to their own belief system and to support in spreading their beliefs, activities, and virtues amongst other groups of people. In Buddhism, the teachings would address society directly and express the spirit of Buddhist social relationships are the teachings on Sila, meaning ethics, moral conduct, and virtuous conduct. The most basic moral code is not to harm other people, either physically or verbally, and not to impair sati, mindfulness, and clear comprehension, which protects a person's moral integrity. In Buddha Dhamma, the basic moral code is most often described and embodied in the Panchapada, or the five precepts. 17.10a, important terms pertaining to morality, Sila, Vinaya, and Sikkhapada. Before looking at this subject of morality more closely, we should examine some of the related Pali terms. Many Pali language terms have various nuances of meanings, which leads to the degree of complexity. Some of these terms have been adopted into Thai language, yet their meaning have occasionally deviated from the original meanings. Some of these terms have even taken on opposite meanings from those they originally had. These terms thus need to be constantly reviewed and re-examined. There are three primary terms in the relevant to the subject of moral conduct, which is in Sila language or Pali language, Sila, Vinaya, and Sikkhapada. On the whole, in the original Pali language, the meanings of these three terms are clearly distinguished. Occasionally, these terms are used in a broad or colloquial sense and may be interchangeable. Technically speaking, however, their meanings are strictly defined and distinguished in order to avoid confusion. Here are the basic meanings of these three terms. Sila, virtuous conduct and moral rectitude expressed by way of body and speech. Being a collective term, Sila is used in a singular. It is a mass noun. It is not divided into sub-factors. Vinaya, an established code of behavior and practice, a framework for one's living one's life, containing rules, precepts, laws, prescriptions, for guiding and monitoring one's conduct in a harmonious and integrated way, leading to order. discipline, success, and fulfillment. This term, too, is a collective term and is used in a singular. Sikapata, rules of training and practice, especially those prescribed by Gautama Buddha, stipulating an obligation to perform an action or to refrain from an action, to undertake the training rule in order to bring about correct and righteous conduct. This term may be used either in a singular or the plural. Combined, all the training rules, the Sikapata, comprises a code of discipline, a Vinaya, practicing in accord with the training rules and being established in the code of discipline or conduct in harmony with training rules and code of discipline is referred to as Sila, moral conduct. The example here is the training rules for monks is called the Bhikkhu Vinaya. Those monks who uphold the Vinaya, those who follow the training rules correctly, are considered established in moral conduct. The same holds true for the Bhikkhunis, who uphold the Bhikkhuni Vinaya. For the Buddhist lay people, there are 5 training rules, or the 5 precepts, Pancha Sikapata, beginning with abstaining from killing living creatures. Lay people who uphold these 5 precepts are considered established in morality. Such moral code is occasionally referred to as Pancha Sikapata Sila. These are the strict definitions as mentioned above. However, these terms are sometimes used in a broad sense, in which case they may be used interchangeably. A common example of this is referred to the Pancha Sikapata, the 5 precepts, as the 5 moral observances. The term Pancha Sila is used only seldom in the Dipitaka. It is used probably for the sake of brevity. In particular, in poetic verses, it is used frequently in the commentaries. Although the term Sikapata in this context is unfamiliar to some people, it is clearly evident in the formal verses of undertaking the precepts. When the term sila is used to replace sikapata, it can be used in the plural, comprising various training rules or precepts. Its meaning is thus expanded beyond the moral character of those who have behaved correctly according to the code of discipline or set of precepts. In the original Pali language, the term vinaya was a very important term with many nuances. For example, it represents a key system of conduct paired with the term dhamma and compounded dhamma vinaya. Meaning of terms, nuances lie in the triad mentioned above of sila, vinaya, and sikapata. At least in the Thai language pronounced vinay, its meaning has become rather ambiguous and imprecise. And even in Buddhist circles, the term vinaya is used in a vague and imprecise way. In Thailand, the term vinay is frequently used in the context of business activities and other everyday enterprises. In this context, however, its meaning is greatly restricted, referred to as self-control, discipline, constraint, and adherence to rules and regulations. The example is an expression of traffic discipline. Vinaya chara. The term vinay has thus developed a meaning pertaining to a person's attributes, namely to a steadfastness and self-control, and the ability to follow specific rules and principles. Here its meaning begins to overlap with sila. A split appears to occur. In the monasteries or in the relationship to religious matters, people use the term sila, while in the relation to mundane matters, people use the term vinaya. This is true even though both of these terms are vital to Buddhist teachings. When Buddhists, including the monks, become Estranged from the essence of the Dhamma Vinaya, their understanding or relevant terms become obscured on the three terms mentioned above: sila, which refers to the moral character of an individual. In the aim and purpose of the other two terms, spiritual training is in line with precepts and guided by a code of discipline intended to generate moral integrity in people. Eventually, the term sila has been used to encompass the meanings of all these three terms. The terms vinaya and sikkhapada remain behind the scene, and the term sila become the umbrella term, has also become vague. Moral conduct is the first factor of the threefold training of Titso Sikha, whereby one cultivates Ati Sila Sikha, morality, integrity, Ati Sita Sikha, the power of the mind, and Ati Panya Sikha, and wisdom. This is the matter of an individual's spiritual training. For individual people, and indeed for the entire world to exist in a state of well-being, one must provide a suitable training for people in order for them to be spiritually accomplished. This training begins with individuals who are then actively engaged in society. A closer look at this process of training, however, reveals that spiritual development requires an ability to relate to other people in society. Everyone is engaged in specific social activities, which may assist at all levels of spiritual development, from cultivating a sense base to cultivating wisdom. People are also engaged in managing their physical environments, allocating the four requisites and other material things, eating, earning a livelihood, governance, etc. All these activities pertain to the concept of Vinaya. Although Vinaya is grouped alongside of Sila, it has a distinct scope or boundary. These terms cannot be used interchangeably and should not be confused with another. These explanations are intended to act as a foundation for the discussion of moral conduct. A clear understanding of these relevant terms will assist in the matter and will help to avoid confusion. 1710b. Sila on the level of Dhamma and Sila on the level of the Vinaya. Broadly speaking, there are two levels of morality, Sila. The first level is the universal level, the level of absolute truth, the Dhamma. This includes teachings or principles of conduct that are taught, desana or Dhamma desana, to show how people to perform good or bad actions, or who observes or violate moral precepts will receive the fruits of these good and bad actions automatically and in accord with the cause and effect in accordance with the law of karma. Karma sakomi, I am the owner of my own action. Karma dayato, born of my own action. Karma yoni, related to my own actions. Karma pantu, abided and supported by my own action. Karma pati sarano, and so forth. Now, the second level is a conventional level, which refers to Pacific Code of Ethics, the Vinaya, containing rules and regulations that have been laid down and prescribed. Panna atta, panna nata. These formal codes are used to govern and direct the individual into particular community or groups, conforming to the group's aims and objectives. A person who transgresses the rules defined by a specific code of ethics is accountable to the authority of that particular group, and this or her transgression is distinct from the negative consequences of unwholesome intentions that inevitably follow according to the natural law of karma. From the perspective of the entire human race, people live under different conditions according to time and place. People are subject to varying social, economic, and political circumstances determined by localities and time periods in which they live. It is impossible to lay down a detail strictly defined as an authoritative ethical code that will be constructive and advantageous to people in every time period and social environment. For the universal human community, Buddhism teaches or recommends the group of factors most often referred to as the Pancha Sila, the five precepts, as the most basic moral code or the minimum level of moral behavior. Beyond these, there are moral precepts contained in the 10 wholesome courses of action, Kusala Kamapata. Specifically, the first 7 of the 10 factors are moral components of the Eightfold Path: right speech, right action, right livelihood, etc., which are comprehensive moral principles. Gautama Buddha presented the moral principles of aspect of absolute truth. A person who observes these or fails to observe them will receive good or bad results according to the laws of nature. If a person decides to follow the teaching of Gautama Buddha, he or she adopts these moral principles as condition for spiritual practice. In other words, the Buddhist teachings stipulate that one must accept as a minimum level of practice the acknowledgement and acceptance of the Pancasikapata, the 5 precepts as mentioned above. The 5 precepts are also referred to the 5 Panchapata, the 5 observances, or the 5 rules of training to undertake. These are the basic levels of practice for Buddhist, male and female lay disciples, but of course they may wish to adopt a more refined level of moral training. For example, for keeping the 8 precepts, the observance days on the commentaries refer to the observance days here are the lunar calendar on the fall and the full, new, and half moon days. These days were used on occasion by Buddhist principal spiritual communities to expound their teachings as their practice was adopted by Gautama Buddha. Other observances, for example, a recitation of Patimokkha and the full and the new moons occur on these days. Now, it is good to note that the Buddhist calendar is on a lunar calendar. You see, the Dhamma exists on the levels of virtuous conduct, sila, concentration, samadhi, and wisdom, panya. Moral discipline, vinaya, is limited to the first level of virtuous conduct. Samadhi and panya, concentration and wisdom, are classified exclusively as aspects of the Dhamma. You see, in some, virtuous conduct exists both on the level of Dhamma and on the level of the Vinaya. Let us explore the first 2 divisions of Sila. The first twofold division, or the first of one of the first twofold division, is moral conduct of Dhamma. The second division from the twofold divisions of Sila is moral conduct as Vinaya. So moral conduct as the Dhamma, as law, causality of nature, refers to the principle of behavior pertaining to moral conduct, to physical actions, to speech, and to livelihood that are taught in connection with the idea of natural state of the human conduct. By acting in conformity with these principles or by violating them, one reaps good or bad results directly. Being accountable to natural laws. A related definition for sila here is moral conduct, moral discipline that becomes one's regular or normal way of behavior, or becomes a personal attribute. Second, moral conduct as the Vinaya, a set of rules and regulations formulated of social legislation for directing people's behavior in accordance with specific aims of community or society. The system of management and supervision also include means of punishing those who transgress the rules. This punishment is separate from the repercussions occurring as a consequence of the law of nature. Strictly speaking, Vinaya is not yet Sila, but rather linked to Sila. It refers to a social system and procedure for establishing people in moral conduct. It is a way of training in virtue. Sila is aided by Vinaya, but as it is the aspect of the absolute truth, the Dhamma, it is not identical to Vinaya. The way to distinguish between these two is that the Dhamma is a matter of absolute natural conditions, whereas moral discipline is dependent on a specific human society or on the ingenuity of human beings. Having made this distinction, one can discuss the term of Sila in a broad and flexible sense as various stages or aspects as follows. Sila refers to behavior in relation to other people, to one's surroundings. This behavior generates blessing for oneself and for others, including one's society and natural environment. Sila refers to moral code laid down to foster a well-ordered, peaceful society whose members can live in their lives at ease. Sila refers to the means for governing people's behavior, leading to discipline and impeccable physical and verbal conduct. Sila refers to a collection of training rules used for eliminating coarse defilements, kilesas, that manifest by way of body, speech, or by leading to greater spiritual refinement. Sila refers to a set of rules for developing people's physical action, speech, and livelihood in order to create a foundation for cultivating and empowering the mind on the level of samadhi and for increasing the mind's capabilities. Sila refers to the natural state of physical action, speech, and livelihood for a virtuous person, a person who has been well trained, who has gained true knowledge, who has reached the exalted spiritual realization. The heart of moral conduct lies with intention, cetana, the intention to be free from any thoughts of moral transgression. One aspect of moral transgression is to violate rules, regulation, prescripts, and code of discipline that has been specifically laid down. Another aspect of moral transgression is to violate of other people, the intention to harm others. Sila can thus be interpreted in two ways: the intention to transgress an ethical code or the intention to violate and oppress other people. Put simply, the term Sila means non-transgressious and non-harming. Viewed from another angle, Sila refers to self-control and vigilance, the refraining from and the preventions of evil actions. And in the most profound sense, Sila can be defined as the state of mind of a person who is free from all thoughts of transgressions and all thoughts of maltreatment. The general rules of Sila Pata in Buddhism are linked to between morality on the length of the Dhamma, morality on the level of discipline, because these rules are based on the universal moral principles and coupled with moral code. Nevertheless, you see, Buddhism does not establish a single ethical code that all people must invariably observe. An ethical code is a matter for members of a specific community to formulate by consensus as it is suitable for their circumstances and objective, by choosing from various moral principles, and then to adhere to this code. The example is formulated into the householder's discipline, based on abstaining from the 10 unwholesome courses of action. Similarly, the layman's disciples or the discipline, based on the Buddha's teachings on conduct found in the Singhalakha Sutra. The example is to abstain from the 4 biases, akati. There's 4 akatis. So we have the akatiya vinaya, and then for the layman we have kihi vinaya. And then we have 6 paths to ruins, apaya mukha, to uphold the proper relationship to the 6 directions. Here is to review the 5 precepts and the 10 wholesome courses of actions. 5 precepts: pancha, to abstain from killing, to not take something that's not freely given, to not have any sexual misconduct, to not speak falsely, and to not to obtain from liquors and intoxicants for the basis for heedlessness. The 10 courses of action is taken by novices is not to kill any living creatures, not to take something that's not freely given, sexual misconduct, false speech, divisive speech, harsh speech, idle chatter, non-covenantness, non-ill will, and right view. In order for the Pali text, or in the older Pali text, when referring to the general moral code of people, Gautama Buddha used the terms the 5 virtues, pancha dhamma, for the 5 precepts. In reference to the rules of training for lay Buddhists, or to the rules for the conduct for lay disciples, the term 5 rules of training, pancha sikapata, is used. Now, the 5 precepts, the pancha sila, occurs once in the Vinaya Pitaka, one of the bases of the Tipitaka. Occasionally in verse passages in the secondary text of the Tipitaka. In the commentaries, is frequently used. Now, the following questions can be posed between the 5 precepts and the 10 wholesome course of actions. Which should be given more emphasis in teaching? Alternatively, if one begins by teaching the 5 precepts, when should one include the teaching on the 10 wholesome courses of action? This will be discussed below. But if one examines the context of the Tipitaka, there are more passages related to the 10 wholesome courses of action than to the 5 precepts. Now, that is the end of 17.10. And we will pick off on 1711, which is the Bhikkhu Code of Discipline in relation to society, on the next one. Buddha Dhamma.